This is the new wall-mounted wet-dry vacuum from Giraffe Tools. Now maybe you're like me and you've never even considered a vacuum cleaner for your garage. Well, hang with me in this video because that's what we're going to talk about on Cruiseman's Garage. Before we get started, I want to make one thing very clear. This video is not sponsored by Giraffe Tools. They didn't pay me anything to make the video. No money changed hands. However, they did send me this product to test and review. And I have reviewed other products such as the retractable reel pressure washer from Giraffe Tools. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of this product. Giraffe does not get to preview the video. They can't tell me what to put in or what to take out. I'm going to tell you exactly what I like about this product. And there are a few things I do not like and I'm not real crazy about. I'm going to tell you all about that too. So let's open up this wall-mounted vacuum and see what's inside the box. Okay, so we have the instruction manual. You tape this up to the wall, make sure it's level. Tools. Here's all the mounting hardware, flag bolts. Here's a little brush tool. Some more, looks like little mounting pieces here right now. Yeah, it's some sort of a foam filter. This out, get down to the little piece of packing foam there, don't need that. Okay, hold on for a second because I almost threw away a very important part of this vacuum cleaner. What I thought was just a black piece of packing foam is actually the filter that's used when you're using the wet side of the wet-dry vac. So do not throw away this black square piece of foam. Let's see if I can lift this out of here. Okay. So this Giraffe Tools retractable vacuum cleaner is much larger than I thought it was going to be. It's actually a pretty hefty piece of equipment. Okay, this is the back of the unit. Here are there's rails on the left and the right side that this will actually slip down into some brackets. I haven't seen the brackets yet. They may be down here. Apparently, there's some accessories installed in this. They call it a dirt box. And I'm assuming that's where all of your dirt goes when you're vacuuming. There are a couple of orange handles on each side, and I think you basically unsnap these somehow like that and remove that box. So I'm going to lay this on its back and we'll see if we can't look inside that dirt box and see what's in there. All of the mounting hardware and a few more of the vacuum tools are located inside of this dirt box, or what I call a dirt tray. I like to lay everything out on the floor and identify all of these parts before I begin the installation. I can also compare it with what they show in the user guide that's supposed to be included with the kit. All of the tools and the hardware appear to be here. For now, until I get this installed, I'm concerned that we have the wall brackets, which we do, and the lag bolts and anchors. Now, I went ahead and put this on here. This is called a silencer. Feels like just a little foam pad in there. Before mounting the unit, I decided to go ahead and connect the wand, and it basically just snaps in place. Apparently this thing has some batteries. It's battery operated. That must be what the signal is for, because this handle, or this wand they call it, has to communicate with the base unit to turn it on and off. So let's pop this little battery protector out of there. Now we should have electronics. Yeah, you can see it lights up every time you press a button. So the little remote does work. It's actually a little quieter than I was expecting. It's not
as loud as I thought. The suction does not feel super strong. Probably didn't feel that strong because I had this vent open. Let me close that and see what it feels like. Okay, that feels a lot stronger. I just had this little vent open here.
The installation instructions suggest that the unit be 47 inches off the ground for better operation of the retractable hose. Now, I'm not sure if they mean the bottom of the unit or the top of the unit. They didn't say, but I'm going to assume it's the bottom of the unit, 47 inches, so I used my level. My first objective was to have the unit centered over that electrical outlet because that would put it right in the middle of the garage. I thought it would look better aesthetically. Unfortunately, I don't have any studs on that wall. Using their template would allow me to use studs to mount this, so I decided to go ahead and try to use their anchors and their lag bolts in the sheetrock. That turns out to be a big mistake.
I'm using the hardware that came with this kit, and as you can see, these washers are still loose. Basically, the lag bolts that they give you, they just kind of spin inside of the anchors that they give you. They don't expand the anchors enough to get a good bite into the sheetrock. So I'm going to go ahead and use them because the bracket is still solid to the wall. It's, you know, all of the force is going to be going down. So I don't think it's a huge issue. But yeah, these washers are still loose. It never really got tight up against the wall.
A few moments later.
Well, I had the video camera turned off. Ricky and I had mounted this, and as you can see, all of those lag bolts pulled out, and the thing almost fell off on the floor. It's a miracle it didn't tear the sheetrock out. So I would say if you're going into sheetrock,
let me modify that. Do not attempt to install this into sheetrock. Make sure you have studs available.
So we've gone to plan B. I'm basically mounting some 1x3 or 2x3s up here. You can see how I'm using some 3/8 by 2.5 inch lag bolts to attach these to the wall on the studs. These are the studs here. For some reason, my studs are not 16-inch centers. They're way off. This one's like 18 inches from this one. That one's like 13 inches. It's weird. Nevertheless, that's what I've done. I did a little counter bore here, and there you can see the lag bolt I'm using. It's a 3/8. I believe it's a 2.5 by 3/8. And then I will mount the bracket to this wood. This is a much better way to go. This is the way I would advise you to mount it if you're mounting on sheetrock. You definitely want to mount this into some studs. Now, since these aren't going to show, I'm not going to take the time to fill these. Also, I did notice that there was a little bit of sheetrock damage. It was like when this thing tilted down and the weight of that was on these bottom screws, it kind of popped out the sheetrock just a little. So sheetrock is not the way to go.
So now I have my 2 rails installed, and the brackets, of course, will install to these rails. Now I'll be using 3/8 inch by 1.5 inch lag bolts to mount the brackets to these rails. Of course, I'm going to throw on a little wall paint so that these rails match the wall behind. So next I'm mounting brackets to my wood rails, and I'm using 3/8 inch by 1.5 inch lag bolts. They're pretty substantial. They're not going anywhere, trust me. And this leads me to my biggest complaint with this vacuum cleaner is Giraffe made the installation much harder than it needed to be. Instead of 2 separate brackets, which have to be exactly 6 inches apart, why not just make it one single bracket with a connecting piece? You could even add a couple more slots for mounting lag bolts. This would make installation a relative piece of cake. So there, Giraffe, I've given you an idea for the next version. Change those brackets to a single bracket. You know, I thought I had these exactly 6 inches apart and level, and Ricky and I struggled to get those tabs to slip down into the slots on the brackets, and they were just off maybe not even an eighth of an inch, or maybe 1 or 2 millimeters. So we ended up having to take the unit back down, and I had to make some adjustments to make sure those brackets were lined up correctly on our second attempt. And you will need a helper most likely to help you lift this onto those 2 brackets. If it was a single bracket, it'd be no problem. And once it's in place, it's solid, it's locked in, no issues after that. The first test of this vacuum cleaner is to clean up its own mess. All of the dust and sheetrock and wood that came from drilling holes is all over the floor, all over my air compressor, so I put the brush tool on the wand and I just went around and used it to vacuum it up. It did a good job of getting up all the sawdust and all of the sheetrock dust. Next, I used the crevice tool to get down into the little tight corners to get any remaining dust up. Now it's time to extend the hose out and get over by my toolbox where I did some drilling of wood. I have a lot of sawdust on the floor and on the toolbox itself. In these initial tests, it seems to me like this vacuum cleaner has plenty of suction power, especially for a garage vac. As you can see, it's getting up all of the sawdust. Now on the floor, the larger crevice tool would have probably been a better tool for this, but I already had the brush installed, so I thought, why not try it? Next, I wanted to give this larger floor tool a try. Use it to get up under the toolbox, and it did a really nice job, and it cuts a much wider swath of picking up things than just that little brush tool. Now that I have my initial test out of the way, it's time to install more of the little parts and pieces that come with this Giraffe Tools retractable vacuum cleaner.
Okay, next we're going to install this wand holder. It just slips up under these 2 little notches here. There's a couple of little tabs. Just slip it up there and install a couple of screws.
And by the way, these are the longer of the self-tapping screws that come in the installation kit.
So now we're going to assemble the tool holder, which is this piece here. You know the bottom is where these 3 little slots are. The top has all of these slots, all of these little tube, I call them tube holders, I don't know what you call them. And basically they just snap in, and then underneath there's a screw, a little bitty screw, these little screws that come in the kit, and you screw them in from underneath. I think they just go in like this. Next, we're going to install these little hooks, and they mount the same way. They have these 2 little tabs on the side. You want to make sure that they're aiming up, I should say. This is the top, because I've got the little tubes I just installed. Just going to press them down in place. And then from the other side, we can attach those little screws to hold them in place. This holds the extension tubes onto the tool rack, and it mounts from underneath. We're going to pop it in here like this. It faces up. You can really only install it one way. You could install it upside down if you tried to install it from the bottom, but it goes in from the inside like this. And then the screw goes in from the very bottom. Okay, now our tool holder is assembled. I'm thinking it will mount something like right here, maybe even down a little lower. I'm not going to use their hardware. I already tried to use their hardware to install the vacuum cleaner, and that was almost a disaster. And this does not weigh that much. Even with all the tools on here, it's probably going to weigh less than 10 pounds. So I'm just going to use my own standard anchors. These are the fasteners I'm going to be using. This should be more than strong enough to hold that. Now the problem is the slots at the top of that tool holder are too big for the head of this screw. And every washer, even the washers I have that go on here, are too small. So I'm going to double up the washers. I'll show you here in a little bit how I do that. Okay, so there's a stud here, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the screw without the anchor. So what I did is I'm using two different washers. This washer does fit with the head of this screw, but even that washer will fit through that slot, so I put another larger washer. These are all I had. I didn't have a great selection, but I think this will work. I am going to go ahead and put one anchor down in here. There's plenty of room with that slot to get in there.
The real star of this Giraffe wall-mounted vacuum is this 30-foot long retractable hose. It's plenty long to reach every single corner of my 400 square foot garage, which happens to be 20 feet by 20 feet square.
So for this demonstration, we're going to test out the vacuum cleaner on the carpet in the trunk of my Honda Goldwing. I've made up a nice little batch of crumbs from goldfish that I crumbled up, cornflakes. I put some little rice, arborio rice in there, and some breadcrumbs. So we're going to throw this in the trunk. I can't believe I'm doing this to a nice, clean trunk. Well, I gotta say, it's pretty impressive. Looks as clean as it did when I started. So I think it passes that test. Okay, so now I'm going to remove this dirt tray, take a look inside. And you can see it's a large tray. It'll hold a lot of stuff. There's all the stuff I vacuumed out of the trunk of my motorcycle. I'm going to go ahead and empty this because we're going to do a wet vacuum test next. To perform the wet vacuum test, we have to replace this air filter with this foam filter. I almost threw this away. I thought it was a piece of packing material. So be careful when you open the box. Make sure you don't throw this away because this is the filter you use when you want to vacuum up water. There we go. You just pull it down and it's going to make a mess. Obviously, you saw all that stuff come out. So be careful when you take it off. So you basically have to remove this dry filter, this dust filter, from this frame and replace it with the wet filter. You just line up these two little tabs into the slots and it just snaps into place.
How does this vacuum work when I dump a pitcher of water all over my garage floor? You might be thinking, why would you ever have this much water on your garage floor? But I routinely use my pressure washer to clean my garage, and all of the water doesn't dry up very quickly. So it's a good test to see how this vacuum cleaner works in a wet situation. I'm using this smaller floor tool that has a couple of squeegees built into the tool. I attached both of the extension pieces to the wand and then the little squeegee floor tool at the end of the extensions. And I was pretty impressed with how quickly it would suck up the water. It did a pretty good job. Now, when I was done, the floor, of course, is still damp, but that will evaporate very quickly. I would say this is a real win for the unit. I think it did as good or better than I expected it to do. So now that I've had a few days to actually use this Giraffe Tools wall mountable wet dry vacuum cleaner with a retractable hose, that's a mouthful. Let me tell you kind of what my final assessment is. What do I like about it and what do I dislike? I guess the first thing, I'm going to get the bad out of the way first. The first thing I don't care for was the way that you have to mount it to the wall. I think they could have done a better job. They need to make that bracket one solid piece so that you don't have to do any measuring. You don't have to worry about being 6 inches apart. All you got to do is get it level, put it at the right height, and you're done. The hose is it does not have as large a diameter as some other wet dry vacs out there. So that probably limits the size of the items that can be sucked up into the vacuum, into the tray. But the hose itself feels like it's a very high quality. It feels very durable. Now, there are some other parts of the unit that don't feel so durable. And the most notable is this wand. While I do like the wand, I like the idea, I love the fact that it's got this little remote control, and I think this is an option that costs extra, and trust me, you want to get the remote control. It's so much more convenient being able to start and stop the vacuum without having to walk all the way back to the unit every time. But this plastic to me feels like if you dropped it really hard or if you accidentally stepped on it, you could break this pretty easy. It doesn't feel that durable. I think they could have done a little bit better job with the materials that they used on the wand. I like the fact that the tray is extremely large. It's going to hold a lot of debris, a lot of stuff that you pull out. I think the filter does a good job. I did not notice any dust, and I was vacuuming up some very, very fine sawdust and other sheetrock dust, and I didn't notice anything coming out. So the exhaust and the filter seems to do a very, very good job of keeping the air clean around the unit. The retractable hose itself, the mechanism, it works very well. However, I would caution you. I have seen other people on YouTube with other retractable devices, and they'll be 20 or 30 feet away and they'll unlock it and they'll just let it fling back into the unit on its own. I would advise against that. Number one, I don't think the wand would withstand the damage, and it's just not good. This retractor mechanism, parts of it are plastic. You should stand at the unit or very slowly let the hose retract. It's going to do a much better job. You're going to get a much longer life out of the unit. The tools, I like the selection of tools. They give you a pretty broad selection of tools. I don't think this unit is really designed for plush carpet. It's designed more for hard floors with some brush tools that would work well on automotive carpet, or even some of the crevice tools. Those are really good for like what I did with my motorcycle or in our car. They're really designed for that. I'm also impressed with the noise level. It's pretty much along the lines of what they say it is on their website, but the most important rating is how well does it vacuum. And I would say both on wet and dry tests that I did, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think it did as good as I could expect it to do. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 5 is I think the diameter of that hose is going to limit the size of leaves or other items that you might need to suck up that literally won't fit through the hose. So that's my review of this Giraffe Tools wall-mounted vacuum cleaner. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in this product, I'll put links in the description of the video where you can order this from their website, or you can order it from Amazon.com, and that does help support the channel. So thanks again for joining me, and please put your comments down below. Let me know what you think of this unit. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next Cruiseman's product review.